Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today, I am talking about lessons that I have learned about how to build a brand that actually lasts. And I am talking about personal experiences from building hundreds of brands, but specifically the brand for our event at IBS, which is the Whiskey Business Mixer. This has been such an interesting case study for me because it's really pushed me out of my comfort zone, but I have learned some really amazing lessons through building this event. And I want to talk about it and how it really relates to any company, any brand, but home builders in specific. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around because I've got a lot of stories to tell. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the marketing and mindset show for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, and around here we go beyond pretty pictures and we get honest about what's working, what's not, and what it really takes to build better brands, better experiences, and better teams. You'll find creative ideas, practical strategies, and conversations that actually matter. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. All right, so let's talk about Whiskey Business. Now, a lot of us here in a home building, you've probably heard of Whiskey Business by now. We have been running this event for 5 years, I believe. Here at Share Drive, we have hosted it every year. And I want to tell the story of Whiskey Business and how it came to be and how the brand actually taught me a lot of lessons. So a lot of people now, they see Whiskey Business as this like exclusive event where the room is packed and everybody's going. So there's a lot of momentum and popularity that has grown around this event. And honestly, it's become so much bigger than me or Sherry or anybody at Share Drive. Like it's become its own thing, which is amazing. And I like to take credit for some of that because a lot of that work I put into building that brand. All of these ideas and all of these strategies were not just mine. And it actually took a lot of determination and restraint and discipline to actually make that vision a reality. A lot of people also assume that like the momentum that a brand has is like inevitable, right? We see these big brands, these big companies, and from the outside, it looks really easy. They're like, oh yeah, they just launched this thing and it's just amazing. But most people don't understand what actually goes into building a successful brand like that. And it's so much more than just good ideas. It's really the discipline behind the mission. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. So a little bit of backstory before I get into it. Whiskey Business started as Sherry Martin, my partner. It was her vision. She had this idea and she was really specific about she did not want another loud industry party. She did not want flashing lights and DJs. She did not want an open invitation. She wanted something very elevated, strategic, but relaxed. Like we could go and just have conversations. So it's not pretentious, but it is premium. And I know because I know her, she was just like, we need better whiskey at IBS and I want to drink whiskey with people I like. So let's make an event. That was part of it. Fair, but that was part of it. So when she told me this whole idea, she was like, okay, I've got this like half-baked idea. I've got all these things. This is what I want to do. And I'm like, all right, we need to start with like to get my head wrapped around this idea, right? So I start treating her like I do every other client that I work with. And I start working on the positioning of like, who is this brand? What is the goal? And really the structure behind the creatives, right? Because I could sit down and make a logo that says Whiskey Business. And honestly, I did the first year I did. And I actually rebranded it after that because that full vision had actually come into fruition for me. And I actually understood a little bit better. But those creatives are only one part of it. And so the structure behind that is what I wanted to really drill down to. And honestly, that structure is what's actually going to scale, right? Like that's what you're actually building. And all the other pretty stuff is great, but it's not what's going to actually move the needle. The most beautiful logo with a terrible structure, terrible brand story, and terrible website, and you're never going to go anywhere, right? While I really enjoy the creative side, I always start with the very strategic structure of like who this is. So we built the framework around that, and we built the positioning around her vision. And I it was really important that we could grow this event without losing that identity. And that's something that can apply to any brand at all. Like every home builder that I work with, whether they're launching a community or working on their corporate brand, you have to do the exact same things. You have to figure out what's important to you, what sets you apart from everyone else, what your buyers are interested in, who is your buyer, and really put together that whole vision for the brand and the structure and the identity behind this corporate being. And I like to think of like businesses as people. So like if I can think of it as a person, I can be like, oh, okay, that type of person would talk this type of way because they're talking to this other person, right? Like I can really break it down of who are they at a deeper level than just being like the corporate colors are blue and purple, and like that just doesn't really connect with anything. The creative part is going to get attention, right? And I love that, like all your colors and your graphics and all of that gets attention, but the equity in your brand is actually built by the structure, and that applies for home builders, applies for communities, it applies for every kind of business. So one of the hardest lessons that I learned throughout that whole process is that in order to build this exclusivity and this experience that we decided was like what this event was going to be about, we couldn't market this the way that I normally would market things. And I think a lot of marketers are this way, in that we have something to sell, so we want to blast it everywhere. We want to talk about it a lot. We want to have an event. We're going to call it a big party and open the doors, right? We want people to come because we want to measure the success by how many people we can get there. But for this event, it was really not about that. It was about getting the right people. It really relied on that exclusivity. And not that we didn't want people to come, because obviously we did, but we had to build curiosity and interest without oversharing about what this event was. Because if we had just called it the IBS after party or something, it would have destroyed that positioning that we had worked so hard to like figure out in the beginning part of that process. So once we had that direction, we had to stick to it. Basically, we could not vary off of that path. And it really took a ton of restraint. And I'll be honest, like this didn't just take me, this took Sherry, this took even our other partners and co-hosts that we worked with. We had to get everyone's buy-in into this mission of what we were doing. And we all held each other accountable. There were times when I was like, can you please just let me blast an email out to everyone to make sure that they're going to come, right? But everyone's like, no, here's why. And there were ideas that were brought up of like, we could have a DJ, or we could have this performer, or we could do this other event at the mixer. And it was like, no, we want this to be quiet. We want this to be exclusive. We want this to be elevated. The little bit of like difficulty getting in was part of the alluring factor to the event. And so it was hard for everyone, is what my point is. And we all had to pull each other back at different times. But I think that restraint is something that's really important for any company as well. That's why, one person marketing teams, it can be really difficult to really carry a whole story on one person. It takes the input of the founder or the owner or the leadership team and all of these people really being bought into the same story and mission that you can check each other. And that back and forth was so important. And again, like I want to pull this back also to home builders, because I see the same thing. It just shows up a little bit differently for home builders. Builders feel a ton of pressure to sell homes. Obviously, we all want to sell homes. And a lot of times that shows up. And when I have conversations with builders, they're like, we'll just broaden the audience. Like you're limiting it too much on what you're marketing to for ads, or let's add more incentives to bring people in, or you start chasing the traffic and making your messaging appeal to everyone rather than appealing to a very specific set of people. Because the idea of telling someone, hey, this product is not for you, is really scary. And I admit that it is scary. However, you have to also know that your product's not for every single person on the planet, right? Like there are people who aren't going to like it, or it's not going to fit for them or whatever. So that's why your positioning needs to be fairly narrow. You need to really keep to your positioning and not expand it too far, because that's only going to weaken the brand. If we can talk to one person and make them feel totally heard, they're totally bought in, they know exactly what this product is, they're all about it. They're like, this is the answer to my problem that I've been having. I wanted a home in this area with all of these things, and this is the community for me. They are so bought in, like that sale is going to be so much easier than if you're like, I saw on your website, like, I'm not really sure that the community's right. Like, the home is the size that I want. Now they're not really sure if it's for them or if it's just got some of the specs that they're looking for. So strong brands are built around protecting the positioning and not chasing volume. That's true for every company. But it's something that's really hard to remember. So as we were building out this brand and we were keeping that clarity really forefront and keeping our brand direction, consistency came into play. So Whiskey Business was not built on one viral moment, right? Like, people did not just randomly hear about this event and everyone showed up. It took some time for that to build, and it took alignment of that messaging and finding the people who we were targeting towards, right? And so that same process that I use with builders is what we did with Whiskey Business as well. And for builders, we talk a lot about the buyer journey. And so that's basically what this was for Whiskey Business. But your buyer journey is so important that it is cohesive and everything says the same thing to the buyer. And I'm not talking about just like the written content. I'm talking about imagery. I'm talking about colors. I'm talking about design. I'm talking about just the overall experience. I'm talking about the decorations in your model homes. Like, everything is going towards this like conversation that the buyer's having with you. And every touch point that they have, whether that's a deck that they pick up, or a website page, or a social post, or an email, or an experience that they had at an open house or an event. Maybe they drove by and they saw your signage, they read a blog. All of those things need to lead the person at the end of the day to say, I know them. And for Whiskey Business, it was like, right, like, oh, I know someone who's been to that event, so now I'm in. But every single thing that someone saw had to be that same story, or else it was going to start falling apart. And I see a lot of builders just sacrificing on that consistency. That really is what builds trust. They sacrifice on it because of so many reasons, right? Like, we're always rushed. We're trying to get things out. We're templatizing things. We're using AI, whatever it is. We're overworked a lot of times in marketing. And so I can see these things start of just breaking up a little bit. That consistency starts to fade. But I want to tell you, that is the number one most important thing in this whole episode, is that consistency is what will keep your brand alive long term. So if you don't do that, and the common breakdowns that I see is that things start feeling disconnected and you start broadening that audience. So when you're really super broad on your website, but then when they come to your community and you're really super specific, it's like a bait and switch, right? Like, they get there and they're like, oh, I didn't know that. Imagine a buyer that is looking, they're like 45 years old, they're looking for like their move up home, and they find this community and this builder and they're like, oh, I love it, we're going to go check it out. And they get there and like, it's a 55 plus only community. So frustrating, right? Like, that community should never have even shown up on their radar. But I see that happen all the time. Like, I've actually been interested in communities and I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's 55 plus, I can't go there. Or the same thing otherwise, someone's looking for 55 plus and they end up in a community where it's just not built for them. And when the website says one thing, when your sales experience says another, when your signage looks different, or your signage leads them to a page that's old or not updated, all these things start to build disconnect, and that really makes your buyers hesitate. They're like, I feel like I need to learn more. I feel like maybe isn't the solution for me. Maybe this isn't the buyer for me. Like, those inconsistencies build up in your brain and they really compound quickly. But a lot of it is subconscious. Like, they're not going to think like, through every single step that I just said. They're going to think like, oh, that's weird. I thought their colors were red. That sign's blue. Huh. And then they're going to drive off, right? But then as they start adding more and more to that story, those feelings will compound and it will lead to distrust. It's a hard thing to explain sometimes, but I know that you all have experienced this. Like you have seen brands like this. And if you pay attention enough to like what happens as you see these different things, you have those same thought processes. They just happen very quickly in your brain. So with this whiskey business, we really talk about a lot about the long-term growth of this event as well, because we weren't looking for like really aggressive expansion. We wanted that brand protection was number one for us. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't have expanded faster. We absolutely could have. But in order to expand it, whether we wanted to be aggressive about it or not, you have to keep that positioning, your audience, and never compromise on the experience ever. Whether you're building slow or building fast, you have to keep strengthening that foundation. And that's what I want builders to hear from this. That if you want to build and you want to grow your company and you want to expand into all these different areas, you absolutely can. But you have to keep certain things just so sacred, and you have to be really aggressive about protecting those things about your brand. Otherwise, it's just going to become so vanilla and so beige that you're just not going to have the same impact. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be a legacy brand. Now, I have heard too, this is a question that I get a lot, is how do you build brands like that when like home builders have their main brand and they have all these sub brands, right? And so they're like, oh, this community has a slightly different positioning, a slightly different targeting than this other community, and they're branded separate. And then we've got this program, and then we've got our green program, and then we've got our realtor program, and we've got all these different like brands. How do you build that all together, right? And how do you make it look cohesive? So my answer to that, and again, we did that with Whiskey Business, is that you have to build an underlying kind of ecosystem that your brand sits on top of. And most of the time, that's your corporate brand. So whatever XYZ builder is the parent, and it has all these little children, which is your communities and all these other programs. And that's what Whiskey Business was. Share Drive was the main brand. And underneath it, we have the Just Make It Pretty podcast. We have Whiskey Business. We have OSC University. We've got personal brands. We've got all the things, right? But all of those pieces and all of those separate brands, they all ladder up to the same belief system. And that belief system is centered around clarity, alignment, emotional intelligence, strategy, elevating and like being innovative. And that's why the ecosystem works. That's why these all seem like they come from the same place, because the same values that Shared Drive has about innovation and leading the pack and being trailblazers and talking about the things that actually work, that's the exact same things that I care about for the Just Make It Pretty podcast. And we translate that for Whiskey Business into, you don't want to have conversations with everyone. You want to have conversations with the people that actually make decisions, or the people who actually are making innovation in the industry. And so all of it still connects back to the main brand. Now, they look very different. The Share Drive brand doesn't look anything like the Just Make It Pretty brand. And you can pull in some continuity through colors and things like that. And we have done that. But really what you're looking for and what makes things feel cohesive is the underlying core values. And so with your communities, it's the same thing. It's like, if you are saying, we really put in a lot of effort into our eco-friendly building techniques, or we build a green home and here's all of the energy efficiency things that we build into our homes, and this is why it's important, then every community that you have also cares about those things. Or if it doesn't have all of those things, it has some of them. And if you are really built around the people that work at your builder, which I would say is one of the easiest ways to make a differentiator, is like personality of the people that are there. If all of your marketing is talking about your people and, you know, how they're experts at what they do and how much they care about their role and all of that, like that should also be shown in the community. You should show the same faces. You should show the same types of stories. And in that way, you can have unlimited number of brands underneath your main brand and still have everything feel cohesive, even if this community is marketed to a completely different set of people than this other one. The values of those people are still the same. They both still care about having an eco-friendly home or a green home or whatever. So you really have to think about, when you're building a brand, you have to be really intentional about like who you are, who your buyer is, and being so just bought into that story and not letting that change. So what does all of this mean for home builders today? Let's bring it all home and wrap it all up. I see a lot of builders right now saying that they have marketing problems. They have traffic problems. They're burning budget really quickly. They're like, we just need more leads. We just need to do more things. We need to make more content. It's all about what can we do more? But what I see so many times is that it's really a clarity problem. They're throwing spaghetti at the wall, if you will, and they're just trying all of the things and they're doing so much. But if they're not in alignment with who they are and who their buyer is and what their brand mission is, and their consistency is not there, they're spinning their wheels and not going anywhere. And that's what I see so often. And you got to give your buyers something to anchor to, something that they can believe in and connect with. And that is the bridge. That brand is the bridge between what you promise and what you actually deliver. And that's what they want to grab onto. That's where the buyer actually wants to be. And so that's what we have to build within our brands. And it's really, I say branding and brand all the time, but it's really that buyer journey. That's what we're building with our brand. We're building out what we want people to experience, what we want to tell them they're going to experience, is what they can understand, and then actually being able to deliver on that. So that's my whole spiel. I learned so much from building Whiskey Business. It's been so much fun. I can't wait for every new year. Like, we make it better every year. It's so much fun. If you haven't been there, definitely keep an eye out, because there will be marketing that comes out about it. And it's something that I think is such a good way of showing, because a lot of people, when you explain like this whole process, they don't really get it. It sounds so scary. And I'll admit, like when Sherry was like, you have to fill this event, but you're not allowed to talk about it. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, crazy. Like, that's going to be great. We're going to win. But like, when you really lean into it and you really just commit to a direction, it's not going to be easy, but it will actually work and get you there. You just have to have that discipline and not in some fearlessness of like, this is going to work, because brand building takes time. It takes a while to build that consistency in, and you have to believe in it. And so many times when I see builders that are like, oh, we just need more, it's like, no, you need to build on the foundation that you already have. And it's one of those, you just got to trust the process, because building a brand is not this like loud and flashy thing. It's steady, it's repetitive, you have to have discipline. And a lot of times it's invisible. Like, I do a lot of stuff that like people don't see for a long time, but it compounds, and that momentum will always compound. You just have to stick with it. And I saw that firsthand with Whiskey Business, and I've seen it in many of the brands that I built. But Whiskey Business was something that really stretched me as a marketer, because we had to be so specific. We could not waver at all. And I think a lot of marketers are used to wavering a little bit, and it's fine. But the consistency in your experience is so important, and it has to match your promise. And I think that's really what Whiskey Business has taught me and really solidified in my mind. It's like, I know for certain this process will work. You just have to stick to it. So thank you for listening to my whole story. I hope that this was helpful for builders out there, because it's highly actionable for builders, and something that a lot of builders have a lot of opportunities within their companies to improve their brand journey or their buyer journey and build their brand. And I thank you for being here. If you liked this episode, please like and follow the podcast. Comment below if you have any questions, or if you'd like to chat with me. I am all over LinkedIn. I'm also on the Shared Drive website, so you can find me there. But please just come and chat with me. I would love to chat about this anytime. If you have questions, if you have experiences to share, please let me know. That absolutely makes my day when I get to meet my listeners. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.